Hello, and welcome to the Sensibly Speaking podcast. This is Chris Shelton, the critical thinker at large.
And this is Ruth McLeod, the son of an atheist.
And we are coming to you a week before Christmas now.
Woo!
Oh my God, it's coming up. And I have just come from Star Wars, The Force Awakens.
You shut your damn mouth. I have not seen it yet.
I am so not shutting up.
Most of our people...
So much to say.
Is going out on Saturday. I guarantee you people haven't...
So many spoilers. I have so many spoilers.
Shut your geeky face.
There will be no spoilers on this show, but I will say that it was amazing, awesome, incredible, great. It did not suck. It was Star Wars. It might as well have been called Star Wars Redemption.
Really?
Oh my God. It was so good. I laughed. I laughed. I sat up straight. I bent over. I sat up straight again.
Did you do that stupid thing where you check your damn phone in the middle of the damn movie?
Not once.
You know what? I can't go see a movie with you ever again.
This is going to get held over my head forever because it happened once.
You know what? I had to make you stop in the middle of a damn movie.
I cannot believe that where this is even coming up. There was no phone checking of any kind because I could not tear my eyes off the screen.
You know, my cousin told me he cried.
I didn't cry, but there were a couple parts that were definitely very emotional.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. And I'm not saying anything else about those moments.
Shut your trap.
Hey. This is a podcast. I can't shut my trap. It was awesome, though. If you have not seen it, run, don't walk, and go see it. And if you're one of these, completely strange foreign weirdo people who, hasn't seen Star Wars. Okay. Oh, yeah, I never saw Star Wars. And I'm not, you've seen it. I'm not calling you out. I'm not even calling you out right now.
I'm just saying. I'm not one of those weirdos, foreign people. What are you talking about? Everyone over the world has seen it, you weirdo.
There are people.
But here's the thing.
I met a guy today who has not seen them.
Okay. I had not seen them until sometime in October, I think. Mm-hmm. I had not seen them all. Mm-hmm. I knew all of the stuff, and here's why I'm excited to go see it. Because I knew all the little spoilers from the first movie. Darth Vader's the dad, brother, sister, blah, blah, blah. All the stuff. I knew it all. So when I watched the movie, I'm like, oh, okay, that's where that happened. So this one, no one knows anything. There's never been a Family Guy, a Simpsons, or anything to make fun of it. There's never been, all 40 million memes online and GIFs online to destroy it for me. So, shut your trap.
No spoilers. No spoilers. The end of this weekend, though, if you guys have not seen it, it is going to be open season on spoilers.
It is not.
No, that's
there is a pact on Reddit and on Imgur. Nobody says anything
for the weekend.
No.
For the weekend.
For the year.
Oh, for the
year?
Rest
of the
I don't know if I can. I don't know if I'm going to be able to put up with that.
I will make it.
Wow.
Happen. You know what? This is a podcast. Say whatever you want and then cut it out later.
Well, I'm just saying I might.
Just don't say it in front of me until I see it.
Well, there's nobody else here for me to say it in front of.
You know what? I'm not. That's what I'm saying. You're going to ruin it for me.
I'm not. Okay. No spoilers right now. I'm just saying next week I can't be so sure.
I'm seeing it on Wednesday. Okay, me and Robbie are going to go on Wednesday.
Then we'll be all good. I cannot recommend it enough, and it was everything I hoped it would be and more. There were definitely surprises in it. Things I did not see coming, things you will not figure out from the poster, things you will not figure out at all until you see it. And the special effects, the story, the pacing, everything about it was just wonderful.
Neat.
So, yeah.
Shut your trap.
And I'm shutting my trap now. All right. And that is my Star Wars announcement. Now, another thing was a comment we were asked about last week was Ruth's colorful expression, ass hat, red hat, or red hat, ass hat.
It flows off the tongue, ass hat, red hat.
Yes.
Yeah,
but what is that? Where does that come from?
So, ass hat, red hat is the name that I have given to a certain loudmouth religious dickhead online.
Feuerstein? Yeah, that
Why do I need to learn his goddamn name? All I have to call him is Ass Hat, Red Hat, and usually people know what I'm talking about. But I didn't exactly explain that somewhere. Maybe I did. I don't remember.
It was. I think it was in the context, but some people missed it. So
yeah, but yeah, when there's somebody this bigoted and hatred filled and just a terrible human being, I don't feel that I need to know his real name or ever say it. So I just give him little nicknames. And Ass Hat, Red Hat is just funnier to say. It's
absolutely.
Yeah.
So that was the answer to that particular question out there.
And he's always in that dumbass hat. And can someone, for the love of God, teach him how to film himself landscape?
It is so funny that just
why
bothers
is this
you so
difficult?
much. It is so funny to me that bothers you so much.
It's the dumbest damn way.
Let's get into some news. We're going to couple stories to cover here. Raw Story talks here about an article on Kentucky shelter tosses out all women days before holidays because they tempt men with ungodly sex.
Wow.
Yes.
So I want to know what they mean by ungodly sex. Like, what are we talking? Are they going to go into positions? I mean, which way? Because I think you're supposed to do it missionary, but sometimes people get creative. You got a little bit of cowgirl going on.
There are admittedly many positions. The whole Kama Sutra.
But what am I doing wrong? I just have to know.
Well, apparently,
I'm not married, so everything I do is wrong.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Kentucky homeless shelter said that it has banned all women and children in an effort to stop them from having sex with male residents.
Whoa.
Yeah, I don't really get the kids. Yeah. I don't get the kids there.
Well, who are the kids staying with? They're usually with the mother.
Well, that's true. Emergency Christian Ministries Director Billy Woodward told WYMT that he had put a stop to the, quote, sex problem.
Sex problem. I think he's the only one with a sex problem. I think he's pissed because no one wants to have sex with him. Is there a picture of him? I want to see.
That actually could be a point. He says they may want to meet or slip in a room occasionally. We can't have that. It seems like these last days
it's getting... I can't do this show. I'm done. I can't.
He says it seems like these last days it's getting worse. ... the ungodly type.
So I wonder what he means right there, because when I read that, I'm not sure if he means it's getting worse, like the sex is getting worse, or it's getting worse, the type of people who are coming in to have the sex is getting worse. Like, I don't know what he means by the ungodly kind. Is he talking about the ungodly type of sex? Because I don't know. I think he's just doing it wrong, because I think it's all awesome.
Well, I would tend to agree with you about
if
that.
If he thinks it's ungodly, he's doing something wrong.
That is true.
Poor honey. He doesn't know how to do it.
I guess not. Well,
I ain't going to teach him.
Nor am I. So apparently the Emergency Christian Ministries has forced up to 12 women to leave. Mm-hmm. And it's not clear if they actually helped them relocate to another shelter, which is apparently a 40-minute drive. This was in Williamsburg, Kentucky. That's where the Emergency Christian Ministries is located, and they have the only shelter for the homeless in Williamsburg. So the mayor of Williamsburg actually is quoted as saying that he doesn't feel that this is something the city feels should be done. And he says, quote, "I'm a little old school, but the first people off the boat were the women and children." And he didn't really get that or think that was a good idea.
So on a more sensibly speaking aspect of this one, I mean, I can joke about the sex stuff all I want.
Of course we can.
And I will giggle about it all night long. But really what we're looking at here, when I first read the obvious eye catcher of a title for this article, it made me react in a certain way. It's like, oh, God, why would you kick out women just because they're having sex with the men? Why would not kick out the men?
Right.
So when you look at the actual statistics on homelessness, you have 62% who are male and 38% are female.
It's sort of a 60-40 proposition.
Exactly. So you have mostly men who are in a homeless situation, whereas women are the lesser population.
They're the minority of it, yeah.
Right. And then on top of that, there are so many women's shelters, or so many women and family shelters that usually only take women and children. So you got to look at this as there are already women-only shelters. I don't normally see a men's-only shelter.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're out there.
Yeah.
Please don't be angry at me if I don't immediately know everything about homelessness off the top of my head. But you don't see them as often as you would see a women's shelter. And you don't hear about them as often as you would a women's shelter. So in the grand scheme of things, I think that there is a need for men to have more places to go, because they are the ones who are statistically more likely to be a serial homeless person, not somebody who's just in and out of it for a month or two while they get back on their feet.
Of course.
Or a woman who's leaving a bad situation.
Right.
That kind of happens a lot, which is why there's those shelters. Because statistically, it's usually women who are being the abused.
Of course.
So that's why there are these shelters. So from that aspect of it, being the feminist that I am, I have to sit back and go, okay, how are we being equal here? Because I believe feminist is more about equality rather than, damn men. I like you guys. We're all good.
Yes.
So I don't think that my initial reaction to this one was my correct action. So that's why I'm glad that I read a few different articles about this to get a better idea. And I will go ahead and say this guy's a total douche canoe.
Well, that's why this has been made newsworthy, is because this guy is specifically he's saying he's not being prejudicial.
Yes.
But he kind of is.
He's saying, I get that it takes two to have sex, but I'm going to go ahead and kick them out. But I did read in here that they had more men at the shelter than they did women.
Right.
So it may have made more sense to him to ask the women to leave just because there was less of them.
Right. It would have been nice if he had taken the additional action and made it clear in his quotes that he had taken the additional action of, sticking the 12 women. We're talking about 12 women here.
Right.
Stick them on a bus, send them to this other shelter 40 minutes away, and make sure they get there, right? Would that really have been that much more of a stretch for him to do, especially during the holiday season,
And it would have been the good Christian thing to do.
Well, that's for sure.
Just to be a smart ass about it.
Yeah, that's but it's true.
But yeah, so I really wanted to focus on this article, mostly just because sometimes these headlines for these articles are written to kind of make you have an initial reaction.
Yeah.
So yeah, I completely agree. This guy is dick hat, whatever. I completely agree that this guy has his ideas wrong.
Yep.
I don't necessarily disagree with doing it. I just really, like you said, I really wish that his reasonings for doing it made more sense.
Exactly.
And were more clear.
Exactly. And also in the news, here is our next story out of North Carolina.
So North Carolina made a little bit of a splash for no apparent reason.
A little bit.
Well, the only reason that they did. So, Woodland, North Carolina had a city hall meeting where they wanted to discuss putting in a solar panel farm, for energy purposes, just like any reason you would have a solar panel, just for an energy grid. So the residents had some concerns, and instead of going to a city hall meeting, voicing their concerns and actually sitting down and listening to intelligent answers, because it's not a problem to bring up a question. They will not let go of this concept that solar panels suck up the sun and block photosynthesis from happening to plants around the solar panels.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious. Not only is this unsettling, one of the people who actually said this was a retired science teacher.
What?
Yes.
That is literally one of the stupidest things I have ever heard.
You know?
That's like saying not to put chocolate milk in the fridge with the regular milk because it might suck up the regular milk into it.
One of the townspersons also said they were worried that the solar panels would suck up all the energy from the sun and businesses would not come to the city. And here's the most troubling thing that I read from this. Because, I mean, it's already troubling enough that people believe this shit. It's also even more irking that a former science teacher believes this.
It's beyond any logical reasoning I can muster up here. She is worried that the panels would prevent photosynthesis in the area, harming local vegetation. But she also noted that there was a high rate of cancer deaths in the area, and she said no one could tell her that the solar panels did not cause cancer. The fact that she will not listen to scientific data or evidence or peer-reviewed journals, nothing can sway her from this argument. Wow. I wonder if she's like from the flat earth school of science. Or maybe some sort of heliocentric model of what she taught.
I have no idea. I'm not going to take... I don't... We have to keep in mind... It's North Carolina.
Okay.
And as a Southern person...
Oh, wow.
The Carolinas aren't our shiniest pebbles. You know what I mean? They look real pretty. They look real pretty.
I've seen some gorgeous pictures coming out of North Carolina. I've never been there. I think I have an uncle there.
They're gorgeous. They're not sharp.
Okay. Okay.
I've got wonderful people that I absolutely love who live there. They're not from there, but they do live there. It's just.
Well, whether it's a North Carolina situation or what, this is pretty.
You also have to look at the demographics of the area. Most of the people are undereducated. They make less than $25,000 a year. There's not a lot of businesses. It's small towns, pretty rural.
Oh, I see. So we're not really talking about a burg here or even a metropolitan area. This is some rural zone.
No, it's
that starts making this make more sense.
Right, and it's just one of those things where you get a small. I'm from a small town.
Right.
My father lives in the tiniest of tiny towns in the middle of southern Louisiana. You have the people there, and you're like, okay, you just sit in the back and just have your thoughts.
I'm tracking with the idea now. Yeah, I get it.
The fact that so many of them came out and argued this in their town hall, and they actually, from what I think, they stopped the panel from getting built. And okay, and then I'll give it to them. They've got 3 other farms around the town, and so one of their solar farms. Mm-hmm. One of their arguments is that they're going to be boxed in by these things, and it's not going to bring any young people to the city, and it's going to stop businesses from coming to the city, and nobody wants to be blocked in by solar panels.
Well, at least they didn't present the argument that they thought the solar panels were going to creep in and murder them during their sleep. Just saying.
I've got stories from places, but this is just one of those that captivated the entire nation, just because it was just so ridiculous. And then you have a former science teacher saying these things, and you just wonder, how were you a science teacher? And this is what you think happens.
Well, maybe she's, maybe she watches a lot of Fox News.
I wouldn't put it past her.
I'm starting to wonder.
I wouldn't put it past her.
Which actually leads us to our next topic.
What are you talking about?
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
This week, we're actually going to talk about an article that was posted by Heather Hogan on Autostraddle, a blog of news, entertainment, opinion, community, etc. And this was a very, very insightful article. It's from September 2nd, 2015. And there's a lot here. This is a meaty article.
It's pretty lengthy.
And but it is probably one of the most important things we've ever talked about on this show.
It really is fascinating.
This is called, the article's name is, "This is How Fox News Brainwashes Its Viewers, Our In-Depth Investigation of the Propaganda Cycle." And the reason that this caught my eye is because Heather uses critical thinking skills and tools to break down how it is that Fox News has created a cult. And she doesn't say it that way, I do. And the reason I'm, of course, saying it that way is because I'm very, educated on the subject of cults and destructive cults. And the tools and methodologies that Fox News uses to create opinions and ideas in the minds of their viewers are cult manipulation, thought-stopping tools. And that's why what caught my eye about this and why I wanted to go over it. If any of you out there are wondering how it is that, idiots would ever, get involved in Scientology or other destructive cults, and I would never do that, well, guess what? If you're a proponent of Fox News, you have fallen you are drinking the Kool-Aid. And now, Fox News is used as an example here. There is no claim on my part or any part of this show or Ruth or even the author of this article that Fox News is the only media outlet that does this. Oh, son of a bitch,
of course it's not.
No, not even remotely.
They just happen to be the one who are most noted to be doing it. They're the ones who are the big obvious, flashy ones.
Exactly.
Yes.
Now, and also the point here, of course, is that Fox News has been the most watched cable news network in the country for the last 12 years.
No one can see me how hard my eyes are rolling. I actually think I just hurt my eyes how hard they rolled.
Yeah. CNN and MSNBC, you take all their viewership, you put it together, Fox News has more.
Yeah.
So we have this is a news, quote unquote, I will stretch my brain to say the word news network, that is getting the ear of far, far too many people and abusing their authority and power. And we're just going to go through a few of the points that Heather brings up here. She got interested in this because she was watching family members and friends and whatnot get, sort of lured to the dark side, really, in getting into Fox News thought traps. And she was very alarmed by this, and she decided to do a breakdown on this. And, the thing is that when you're dealing with Fox News, a point she makes here is that, their tagline, their motto is fair and balanced. And the fact is that they are interested in anything but being fair and balanced. And it's just Orwellian doublespeak that they use that as their tagline when they are the exact opposite of fair and balanced, as we'll go over. And they are not a reliable source of news. In going through this, it became very, very obvious because I am obviously not a Fox News watcher.
No.
That's not where I get my news from. That's not where I get my opinions from. And I've known for a very long time that Fox News is one of the most biased media sources out there. It was obvious to me in looking at it. I suspect that's the case with many of our listeners of this podcast. But it's worth going over because of the cult aspect of this. And this is actually, I have made a number of videos where I've talked about, the fact that destructive cults are not always just religion-based. They can be political-based, sports-based, and also media-based.
Yep.
And so I'm using this term advisedly. I'm very much on purpose. I am saying that Fox News has developed a destructive cult of followers. And so what they do, and this is a quote here from the article, is because Fox News, quote, is playing a zero-sum political game in which every major news story is an opportunity to use their viewers as pawns to advance the power and agenda of the most extremist ideology of the Republican Party, end quote. And that is your hidden purpose and agenda and what's actually the reality of what's going on. And then they put all of this stuff out there, which we're going to go over, to forward that, to make that purpose happen. And it's quite interesting. In the same way that The Church of Scientology presents themselves as a new religious movement, but in fact, all of that presentation, the clerical collars and the religious services and the counseling and the classes, all of that is window dressing. And what you're actually looking at is a money-making scam. It's not a religious movement. But even the followers of Scientology believe, because they've been conned so well, they actually believe they're part of a religious movement. And that was never actually the intention of what Scientology was put together for.
Money, money, money.
Exactly. And so we have Fox News, never put together to be a fair and balanced news media organization.
Even though that is totally their
That's right.
slogan.
Exactly.
Catchphrase.
They were actually put together to forward and advance the power and agenda of the Republican Party. Mm. And when you see that for what it is, and I'm stressing this for a reason, because you have to look at what they're doing from that point of view, suddenly everything lines up and makes sense.
Right.
In the same way that everything Scientology does only makes sense if you realize it's a money-making scam. If you look at it as a religious movement, the stuff they do doesn't make any sense. Why would they say these things in public media? Why would they shoot themselves in the foot every chance they get? Why would they disconnect families? Why would they do these things, Church Scientology? Because they're a money-making scam and they're trying to protect their interests. The same with Fox News.
The thing with Fox News is they need to make money from a 24-hour news network. And the way that you have a 24-hour news network is to create news. And part of the news that they create are these buzzwords and, the fear-mongering and all of that. And that's how people end up watching it 24/7.
Right. They become addicted to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, again, another reason why I throw out there that we're talking about a destructive cult. Right? Because you get members who become part of this thing, and this us versus them mentality enters in where, and this is very carefully crafted by Fox News.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So that mentality exists where Fox News is the only bastion of truth, and anybody else who criticizes or goes against Fox News or says something different than Fox News is actually a bad and evil-minded person.
They're un-American. They're unpatriotic.
That's right.
They're
unchristian.
Immoral. They're
that's right.
anti-Christian. Not only are they not Christian, they are anti. They are
Right.
warring on Christianity. And the only way that you can be a good American is to be obviously a Christian.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So what we have here with Fox News is when they get hold of a news story, they'll pigeonhole that story into their agenda. And once they've settled on what outcome it is that they're looking for from their presentation of the story, then that is what shapes their narrative and sets in motion what the author here, what Heather refers to as a brainwashing cycle. And the tools that are used in this brainwashing cycle are right out of a cult leader's playbook. So let's go over some of this. She's got an article, and we'll put the link up on this because there's some great graphics involved in this.
Oh, yeah.
It's a perpetual motion machine that goes between 4 different steps, right? You isolate viewers, you create an enemy, you appeal to fear, and you foster an alternate reality. And this just goes round and round and round. And there's various sub things that go on in here, which we'll talk about. But those are the steps. Isolate viewers, create an enemy, appeal to fear, and foster an alternate reality. And they actually create this bubble world apparency of what's going on out there, just like every destructive cult does. They create a false facade of what the world looks like, and they present it as though this is what is really going on.
Right.
So let's go into this. Isolate viewers is the first step. Now, this was interesting. I did not know this. According to the article, the liberal elite, how many times have you used or heard the liberal elite?
I've been called the liberal elite.
Oh, I'm quite sure that anybody who listens to Fox News would consider this podcast to be amongst the liberal elite.
I'm elite.
Right?
I'm going to go home and eat my little hot dog and go to bed.
Right.
My 1-bedroom apartment
but
by myself.
One gets the idea of these, snooty, hoity-toity, pinky raised in the air type of people. But get this. The liberal elite is a concept that was actually created by Richard Nixon all the way back in 1960 when he first ran for president against Kennedy. And he lost miserably, right? Kennedy, just wiped up the floor with him.
Yeah.
And what happened was, back in 1960, back in the 60s, feminists who were advocating for workplace equality, black people who were working to end racist violence and segregation, and laws against interracial marriage. I mean, it was literally against the law.
Right.
Right? And anti-war demonstrators who didn't want to have anybody going to Vietnam. Well, this was making white men very uneasy because, of course, when you look at the centralized government and establishment and power base, it's undeniable. I'm not trying to be bigoted or weird or anything like that. It's made up of white men.
It's good to be white.
Let's just face it. It's
Sometimes
good to be white.
It'd be awesome to have the parts and be a man, but...
Yeah. But white and white men were men were the ones in power. They were the ones making the laws.
Yeah.
And white privilege is just, it's a thing, deal with it, it's out there. So the Nixon campaign began branding these activists as the liberal elite. And alternatively, right, the good old white guys, the hardworking white guys, right, were the real Americans, and the liberal elite were the threat to all the traditional, God-approved, founding fathers sanctioned way of life. And so this should sound familiar because this is exactly the coattails that Fox News rides on.
Yeah.
And they constantly create this dichotomy, this situation of the liberal elite, right, being anything counter to what Fox News is saying. So you're either with us or you're against us.
Yeah. There's definitely that.
And that isolates the viewers, right?
Yep.
That is the black and white thinking that is developed. Now, I'm talking about this not just to talk about Fox News. We're using Fox News as an example. Any group that does this is something that should raise the hackles of anybody who's listening to this, right? If you're getting the idea that you're on one side and, these other guys who have counter positions to you are all over on this other side, and you're starting to feel a little isolated, a little alone, starting to wonder what the hell's going on, that is very purposefully being done. You have to understand that media use the tools of words and imagery and opinions to create that in you. That is what propaganda is. And this is a science. This is not just something that happens by accident.
Right.
Now we next get into, in this business of isolating viewers, here are some ways that is done. False dichotomies. Okay, and dichotomy is an opposite. Dichotomy is black and white, right? Blue and red. Liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican. These are dichotomies. But there's false dichotomies, and this is a propaganda technique where you can, and this happens. This is one of the biggest problems I have with conspiracy theories as well. Is you take a complicated issue and you oversimplify the shit out of it, and you force people to believe that it's either or. You're either with us or you're against us, right? As I was just talking about.
Right.
Now, the people who create false dichotomies know that there are more choices available. They know that issues are complex. I think on this show we talked about the two-dimensional versus three-dimensional thinking, right? We talked about that a while ago. Mm-hmm. And the false dichotomy creation is one where you purposefully take a three-dimensional situation and you make it two-dimensional.
Right.
So, and that what you do when you're doing that from a propaganda angle is you give somebody the idea, and it's easy for people to fall into this, that they have to make a choice. Right. If I don't support, if I'm against the guns, then I'm against America.
Yeah.
Right? You set up this whole, you're un-American, right? Because if you're American, then you believe in guns, right? These kind of things, right? And you have Fox News, and you also have talk radio, because there's lots of these conservative talk radio guys, Rush Limbaugh, or Sean Hannity, or they don't just position themselves against MSNBC, for example. They position themselves against literally every other source of information.
Yeah.
That's how it gets done.
Which it should be a huge red flag. If you only get your information from one source,
yep,
like a holy book, hint, then
that is another false dichotomy.
Yeah. Then
right?
yeah.
It's either the Bible.
This,
or it's not, or it's shit.
I just said holy book. You interpreted Bible.
That's same with
all
the Quran or the.
No, but yeah, that's one of those quintessential false dichotomies.
That's right. That's exactly right. And in this particular case, this is, and the point made by Heather here is that this is really, really important. It is absolutely necessary. If Fox News is going to achieve their agenda, their purpose for what they're doing, they have to create this false dichotomy.
Of course.
It has to be that you're either with Fox News or you're completely against Fox News, and anyone else who is not Fox News is the bad guy.
Well, of course, the bad guys are going to be saying the things that Fox News doesn't want you to hear. They want you to hear their angry, one-sided...
That's right.
With us or against us view, so that you'll continue to listen. And the more you listen and the more you watch, the more money they make.
Bingo.
There you go.
Now, there's the next tactic with this, the other propaganda technique, and all of this stuff, you look into critical thinking and rhetoric and logic and debate, and you find these tools. This is where this stuff comes from. This stuff is as old as dirt. This stuff has been being used since Greek and Roman times. But in modern media... they've really refined this stuff to a science. So another tactic that's used is called ad nauseam. And you might get the idea, you've heard something over and over and over, ad nauseam. That's where it comes from.
I like to think of it as, like, one of the ways that it would help me remember this when I took critical thinking in college was ad nauseam means you hear it so much you are almost nauseous.
Exactly.
That's how I like to remember
sick of it. That's
I'm
right.
so sick of it. I've heard it so much.
This is also another crucial tool, is they will hit you with the same message or the same idea or the same phrase, like liberal elite, over and over and over.
Mainstream media.
That's right. The mainstream media. What is the mainstream media? Just think about that for a second.
They are.
It's them. So you get these ideas and you hit somebody with them over and over and over again. And when you have multiple commentators, multiple sources saying the same thing, multiple sources on Fox News.
Right. I was about to point that out for you. I'm glad you caught it.
Yep. But when they're all saying the same thing, you start to accept it as fact. It's just how our brains work.
I hear it all the time. I hear it all over the place.
That's right.
Liberal media. That's because you're listening to the same 6 people say it all day long in your car.
Exactly.
Mama.
That's right. And don't think that they don't reach out to... And again, this is calculated, right? When Rush Limbaugh is saying these things, he's not saying them by accident.
No.
Right? When Sean Hannity says the exact same thing as Rush does, and he does...
No.
This is not an accident.
A lot of that shit comes from Rupert himself. Murdoch.
Good old Rupert.
Now,
we then move into something that should be familiar to anybody who who's listened to me talk about cults and cult thinking, and that is confirmation bias and cognitive dissonance. And here's the deal. Once a person is settled on a core belief, right, once somebody actually accepts something, the way our brains work is they will seek out information that confirms or validates that belief, and they will tend to avoid information that challenges it.
Like North Carolina science teachers and their solar panels.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And they're actually, because of the way confirmation bias and cognitive dissonance work, they'll actually bend information. They'll change information that they receive in order to align it to what they think is their worldview, how they see things. And that's the cognitive dissonance, because when somebody receives a piece of information that doesn't align with what they're thinking, it makes them uncomfortable. So one way of dealing with that is to literally change the idea that they've received rather than change their existing belief. So you get people twisting information around, and you go, why are you twisting that information? Well, it's because they're made uncomfortable by it, right? That's cognitive dissonance. And so you get this phenomena where people accept only information that confirms to something that they already believe and reject information that challenges those beliefs. So Heather says here, one of the main reasons Fox News is so effective at using cognitive dissonance to keep people away from other news sources is that Fox strategically aligned itself with evangelical Christianity. So if one of Fox News' teachings is called into question, Fox itself is called into question. And if Fox is synonymous with God's politics are called into question. And if God's politics are called into question, God is called into question. Therefore, any challenge to Fox is framed as an attack on God himself.
Because if you are not one of us, you are definitely against us. And if you do not agree with Fox, then you are somehow ungodly. And that is something many Americans do not want to be associated with.
That's right.
As an atheist, I can tell you, it sucks.
That's exactly right.
As soon as people hear that you don't have a religious affiliation, especially not their religious affiliation, then you become scary.
Right. Well, psychologically, religious belief is, without question, agree with it or not, like it or not, in terms of whether, by agree with it or not, I mean agree with religious belief or not, or whatever your religious beliefs are, I think it's fairly safe to say that religious belief is one of the most powerful motivating forces in the world.
Right.
Right, amongst human beings. Religious belief causes people to do amazing things, both good and bad.
That's correct.
So when Fox News aligns themselves with evangelical Christianity, which does happen to be the majority religion amongst the United States, they do that on purpose. I mean, that was a strategic decision.
And it's so obvious. I mean, we said when we started this segment that they are the flashiest of all of the cable news channels. Heather points out right here, Fox News radio host Todd Starnes called notoriously anti-LGBT restaurant Chick-fil-A the official chicken of Jesus.
Right. A news organization says that.
I'm sorry.
And you can see now how that fits in with what they're doing and how they're doing what they're doing, right? Just hearing those words,
right? Your
mind automatically starts making connections that it absolutely should not be making.
Right. Why would you associate chicken with friggin' Jesus? Like, what? There is no link between the two. But because they did that, now people associate Chick-fil-A and Hobby Lobby as another one.
That's right.
And pro-life and guns to the religious morals.
That's right.
The good side of America.
And that being one of the most powerful motivating forces for people, they will then feel it is literally divinely inspired activity on their part to go eat at Chick-fil-A, to go shop at Hobby Lobby, to have a gun.
Which it shouldn't matter. We're a capitalist society. Those are freaking businesses.
Precisely.
But you make it into a religious argument and people get hot about it. They really do.
That's right, because it rides on the coattails of their religious belief.
Of course.
That's how you generate that kind of power, and the power of that kind of opinion. Because Fox News, I mean, just throw this out there right now, you know, you fact check Fox News, and it's laughably bad percentage of news. You wonder how they stay in business.
Right.
This is how they do it.
Oh yeah.
Right. And don't think that Chick-fil-A and Hobby Lobby and similar groups don't know exactly what's going on and are major donors to. Are
you kidding me? Absolutely.
These activities.
Oh right? Yeah. No. Yeah. Totally.
Also, you get Bill O'Reilly, who's he just cannot stop with this imaginary war to preserve Christmas.
Talk about ad nauseam.
Oh my God.
Freaking Bill O'Reilly.
Right. All right. Now, that was the first of those 4 steps, right? Is this business of isolating viewers, right? Those tools are used to give a person the idea that it's us versus them. And of course, that they should be on the side of Fox News because that's the side of being right.
Righteousness. Not just right. Righteousness.
A good point. Very good point. Now, the next stage in this propaganda cycle is create enemy. Okay, that's how Heather puts it here. Create enemy. The most important component, she says, the most important component of maintaining a world built on propaganda is creating an enemy who is excluded from an in-group. Okay, and this is where we get the black and white thinking, right? You've established us versus them, and now you have to create an enemy.
Right.
So
who's the them? Like if there's an us and them, then who is the them?
You got it.
So that's what we're getting into right now.
Exactly. And bouncing off Nixon's concept of traditional Americans versus the liberal elite, right? Traditional Americans are defined by these people as people who love God, who love their families, and who love their country. Right. Now, traditional Americans do not need to be defined that way.
No.
Traditional Americans could be defined as freedom-loving, staunchly independent thinkers, right? Educated statesmen. I mean, if you look at the Founding Fathers, right, and you go, well, who are traditional Americans? Well, does it get any more traditional than the Founding Fathers?
We're supposed to be a country that's accepting of other religions, of other creeds, of other nationalities, other races. We're supposed to be that.
So traditional American values should include open-mindedness.
Yes.
Right? Intellectual rigor, critical thinking.
Yeah.
But instead, if I throw out there, because the propaganda is so strong, I'm sure that anybody who's listening to this, when I say traditional Americans, you instantly think, love God, love families, love the country.
I got a white family sitting down to a big dinner. There's an American flag. There's got to be an angel somewhere on the wall. And there's a gun rack.
That's right.
That's what I've got in my head.
That's right. And that is a created imagery by institutions like Fox News. Yep. It's not an accident that people have those images come to mind when certain key words are used.
Right.
Now, in this case here, we're talking about Fox News. So you create this traditional American idea, and that's your in-group. And then you have a process of othering. In other words, there's the in-group and there's the out-group.
Right.
And the out-group are the others. There's us and there's them, right? And by exploiting beliefs and images and negative stereotypes, and this other group is created. And in the case of Fox News, they made the others be the liberal elite, people who challenge the oppression of the established power structure. Right. So once the enemy has been created, you don't have to use any more logic. Nope. That's it. We're done.
Nope.
Right? And so the way they go about doing that, of creating this enemy, is there's some tools that they use. One of them is called projection, or it's also called flipping. And it's simply falsely accusing someone else of doing or being the thing that you're responsible for doing or being. And this is fascinating. I wish I knew how to do this when I was in grade school. I could have blamed so much shit on my sisters. Exactly.
Man.
And Fox News actually loves doing this.
They're pros at this.
Total technique. And this is probably best demonstrated by some examples. And Heather cites a couple here. On a November 2012 episode of The O'Reilly Factor, Bill O'Reilly lambasted dishonest media culture and vicious people, quote, vicious people from the far left. This is what he was saying. He was saying these vicious people over here on the left. He said, there are entire media operations that exist solely to promote ideology. It's obviously a bad situation that is getting worse. Now, the irony is that he was absolutely right, and he's speaking from a platform that is doing exactly that.
He basically just described himself.
Precisely.
Yeah.
But he positions these left-wing liberal elites as the ones who are doing that.
Yes.
And you could call it irony, but it's actually projection. It's flipping. Right.
So he's describing other people who are doing that, but he's not pointing out that he is doing it. So it makes you think that they are their catchphrase, fair and balanced. And so people get bought into that.
That's right.
And that's further creating this us and them. This is the other people doing these horrible things. Not me. I'm not doing it. It's them. So keep listening to me because I'm your trusted friend.
You got it.
Yep.
You got it. Another of my most favorite people on Fox News, or who was around there, Glenn Beck.
Ugh.
Long history of spewing racist rhetoric against black people, Muslims, undocumented workers. And the example cited here is he accused President Obama of having a deep-seated hatred for white people or the white culture.
Obama is half white, man. Dude, his mother is white. Are you free? He grew up in a... Okay.
Right. But that's Glenn Beck. It's the pot calling the kettle black.
There's something about Glenn Beck that just makes like wires in my head flip,
Right.
and I just get angry.
And I don't believe me. I actually do understand. I had a period of time where I was listening to him, not because I believed what he was saying, but because I was kind of fascinated by some of the nonsense that would come out of his mouth.
And his damn chalkbord.
Exactly, and he took it so far.
Yeah,
it just got, again. How I feel about conspiracy theories, right?
My mother still listens to him.
Ugh, I'm very sorry for your mother.
Well.
Now, another propaganda technique is called character assassination. And, of course, we just saw a little bit of that with Glenn Beck talking about President Obama. But you attack a person rather than an idea. This is also known as ad hominem.
Right.
Right? You discredit, you defame, you demonize, you dehumanize the individual who is saying a fact rather than the fact. And that creates an association in another person's head that fact shouldn't be listened to, shouldn't be true, shouldn't be given any credence, even though the fact stands independent from the person who says it. Which is why I try to avoid ad hominem as much as I can, because it shouldn't really matter who is forwarding or saying something.
Right.
Is the fact itself true or false?
And somebody who does a character assassination or an ad hominem, if they legit can't come back at me with an argument, they have to attack how I look, how I sound.
That's right.
My accent. I don't care. That just tells me that you're not intelligent enough to have a real argument or conversation with me. So, whatever.
Now, Fox News specifically has actually made it a bit of a common practice to create heroes out of racist white men who, kill innocent black teenagers, for example. And not just once. This is not just being generalized by taking one example. There are numerous examples of this. There was Trayvon Martin was murdered by George Zimmerman.
Yes.
Now, George Zimmerman was acquitted of that murder in a court of law, so I'm not going to sit here and get all down on George Zimmerman. What we're talking about is Fox News' representation of George Zimmerman,
right, and
how that played out. And I think if you follow George Zimmerman in the media, you see the guy's a train wreck.
Yeah.
And it's a total disaster. And
sidebar, that guy can't stay out of trouble.
Right.
He can't.
Exactly.
I don't.
Okay. But the point being that Fox News painted Trayvon Martin in the worst possible light.
Right.
And painted George Zimmerman in the best possible light.
Right.
Right. Or you have Eric Garner was killed by New York City police, who literally brought the guy down with an illegal chokehold and killed him.
Yes.
Fox News went to great lengths to blame that murder on the victim.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, way out of their way to do that.
Well, you're just despite a bad guy thug.
It was even on video that it was done.
Well, see, because I grew up in this concept. Why are you being a bad person to get the cops to even notice you anyway?
That's right.
So you're putting it's basically victim blaming, and rape victims get a lot too.
Precisely. That's right.
It's incredible.
Another example, just to really, drive home the point here without going to ad nauseum, is unarmed black teenager Michael Brown, shot multiple times by Officer Darren Wilson. Fox News hosts repeatedly asserted that Brown was a bad guy. That's the words they used. He was a bad guy. And that narrative included the perpetual presentation of false information about Michael Brown to create an image in the viewers' heads that this guy had it coming.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm sorry, but he didn't.
Freddie Gray was killed in the back of a police van in Baltimore. And Fox hosts were basically just saying, do a toxicology on the guy, see if he had any drugs. It's like the guy was killed in custody.
Right. There was no evidence of drugs. There's no suggestion of drugs. But the mere suggestion by Geraldo Rivera to look into drugs, right? Well, or, whoever, but it was Bo Dietl, who brings this up. Yeah. And you go...
Rivera was saying that the protesters were people who were looking for trouble.
That's right.
That's what he was all about.
Right. And they use these words to create fear and uncertainty and anger on the part of their viewers, and they're literally just drawing these words out of thin air. There's no basis in fact for these things. No. And they use it to shape and create an opinion that otherwise would never have even occurred to the viewers to have.
It's surprising how much this contributes to the racist problems that we're having.
It is, I think, almost...
It's one of the major contributors.
Yes, exactly. I can't say it's the cause of it because that's human nature. Right. But this exacerbates that. Yes. And it's done on purpose. Right. And that's where I just really lose it on that. Yeah. Another technique on this, and the last one in terms of this creating an enemy, is scapegoating. And that's where you basically place blame on an innocent group or individual, and in order to shift the blame from the people who are really responsible. Right. Right? Bill O'Reilly, this guy, right, opposes a mosque being built near Ground Zero, and he says, and why? Why oppose this mosque? Well, according to Bill O'Reilly, Muslims killed us on 9/11. Right? Total generality. Complete and utter generality. All Muslims everywhere are responsible for 9/11 is the implication there. Or
Christians killed us in 96 in Oklahoma. Let's just go ahead and say that.
Yeah, and then we get Ann Coulter, who I just have no positive words for of any kind. She literally says on Fox News, on the O'Reilly Factor, if all Muslims would boycott airlines, we could dispense with airport security altogether. So it's just creating, it's scapegoating, it's creating an impression.
So people like you and I, Chris, and people who listen to our podcast can sit here and see this, and they get just as upset about it as we do. Right. And we can see how incredibly terrible these statements are. Yes. And we can see these logical fallacies popping up all over the place. The thing is, the people who watch Fox News don't see that. They see this as fact. They believe this wholeheartedly.
That's right, which is why I'm taking the time. That's why we're taking the time to go through this article, break these things down, so that anybody who's listening to this can see the techniques that are being used. That's why we're walking through it, and can point these things out to people.
You can't make them listen to it, though. That's the problem, because they're listening to Fox.
I know. Education is the only real antidote to this kind of situation.
And well, not for that poor science teacher in North Carolina. Okay, but please, let's mention Megyn Kelly. Freaking Megyn Kelly, who was quoted to say, Jesus was a white man too. And I know exactly what this was in reference to. I know the context in this one. They were talking about Santa Claus. And how there was somebody made a black Santa or something, and she's like, why do we have to change Santa Claus? Why do we have to do this? And then out of nowhere, she says, Jesus was a white man too. And I think for half a blip, you can see the other people on that show kind of look at her like, did she really just say that? We can't argue with her because we're on air right now, because she said it live. I mean, it's not like you can cut it and take it out. Right. But
yes.
Jesus, he's from the Middle East. He's Middle Eastern. Yes. You dress like him on the nativity scene every flippin' Christmas, but if somebody who is actually from the Middle East, like Jesus, showed up at your door, you'd be calling FBI because ISIS is on your goddamn lawn. I'm sorry. I
understand. I know.
All right.
Now, the third phase of the operation. You're correctly infuriated because it is infuriating.
I'm infuriated, but I'm also incredibly frustrated.
I know.
This This isn't like a secret. This isn't freaking Da Vinci Code where you have to figure out what nationality freaking Jesus was.
I know.
Whether or not he was even a real man doesn't matter. The fact is, he's from the goddamn Middle East. He's not white, Megan.
Okay, good. Now, the third factor in this propaganda cycle is appeal to fear. And this is absolutely essential to any propagandist, and Fox News definitely. If fear is, as Heather says in her article, fear is a primitive and often irrational emotion. So messages that appeal to fear bypass the brain's logic center and land right in the hypothalamus, which controls a person's fight or flight response. It's a very good point.
Yeah.
Because this is where Donald Trump lives, as we talked about last week, right? Appeal to fear is crucial, and the way that gets done, the tools used, minority baiting. It's a propaganda technique that's used to prey on fear that's based in otherness, right? You're afraid of people of other color, other culture, other race, other location.
That's why Jesus has to be white.
That's exactly why Jesus needs to be white.
We're afraid of Middle Eastern.
That's right.
We're afraid of brown people.
You nailed it. That's exactly right.
Exactly why he has to be white.
So Fox News accomplishes this minority baiting by reaffirming the bigoted, ignorant beliefs their viewers have ingested through the course of their lives from TV, movies, books, advertising, and American foreign policy propaganda. And they create a false narrative in which the stereotyped minority is threatening the American way of life.
Okay. So this is where we get some more of this super awesome racism pandering.
It's pure racism.
Because these people who are the minorities, somehow they're un-American.
That's exactly the positioning
exactly
that's
what
used.
they're going for.
And not only are they un-American, they threaten the American way of life.
Exactly.
And they do this by using trigger words, key ideas, key words that gets used. For example, the phrase illegal aliens.
Ugh.
Right? That triggers fears about immigrants being criminals. Or they use phrases like defender of marriage or defender of faith, which is the positive positioning against the LGBT rights supporters, right? Mm-hmm. LGBT equality supporters are people who are fighting for civil rights for everybody.
Yes.
So in order to counterpoint that, you can't say, I don't want civil rights for everybody. That's just blatantly evil. Right. So instead, they couch it in terms like defenders of faith or defender of marriage, right?
Yeah. And
so it becomes
it's an attack
positive,
on traditional marriage.
That's right.
There you go.
You got it.
There, okay.
Then you get words like thug, ghetto, hood to refer to black people.
I actually was in the car, this is just a quick little side note, with my coworker the other day, and a guy from Georgia cut me off. And any other Southern person will tell you, Georgia is just a special crazy. Mm-hmm. And I've never been a big fan of Georgia people. And I'm not trying to do the whole lump. I don't like them all. Just a majority of them have pissed me off. Let's just say that.
There's no propaganda occurring here right now,
no,
folks.
not at all. No, totally not. I'm not, no. But anyway, I was like, and my coworker's like, so what's the thing with Georgia? I'm like, they're just thugs. But the thing is, I felt the necessity to clarify. It doesn't matter their race, gender. Mm-hmm. I felt like I had to clarify thug as meaning more than just what Fox or, racist people will want you to think. Because thug is usually a term that people will associate with black people.
That's right. That's exactly right. And it's done on purpose.
Yes.
There are also, in addition to this minority baiting, right, akin to that is stereotyping.
Right.
Right. And this gets really in your face. It's actually quite dramatic the way they do this. They will throw things out there like, for example, if I start throwing out words like welfare and food stamps, if you're a Fox News follower, the first thing you start thinking is lazy minorities who are taking wealth away from hardworking white people.
Guess who statistically uses the most welfare?
Mm-hmm.
White people.
But Fox is never going to show you those statistics.
Absolutely not. Are you kidding me?
There's another phrase Fox uses all the time: black on black crime.
Ugh.
Right? So they present this stereotype that black people are always running around killing each other.
Person.
That's right. And finally, and this one actually will explain so much to you about Fox News. O'Reilly says on The View, Muslims killed us on 9/11. Right? I mentioned that earlier.
Right.
Brian Kilmeade defended him later on Fox and Friends when he says, quote, "Not all Muslims are terrorists, but all terrorists are Muslims." Which is why they will never, ever, ever report on anyone who goes and blows up a Planned Parenthood or kills 3 people and wounds 9 others as a terrorist. They won't say he's a terrorist.
At 3 a.m. for about 5 seconds, and they won't use the term terrorist.
Exactly.
At all.
That's right. Because according to Fox News, all terrorists are Muslims.
Right.
And when you really grok that, when you really get what I'm talking about with this, you'll see why you will never, ever, ever get anything approximating truth from Fox News.
Right.
Now, the fourth and final stage on this, to wrap this up, is creating an alternate reality. So here you have just blatant misinformation being spread in order to deceive. And yes, the media does this. Fox News,
no.
Oh my God, I know, constantly, purposefully misinforms its viewers. And I don't need to assert the proof of that because it's already been proven by endless numbers of fact-checking sites who have reviewed Fox News' articles and found them to be one of the lowest, their facts are lowest percentage on their news stories.
They have, when you look at certain topics like climate change, they have 72% of what they say about climate change is misleading. So that's just blatant misinformation.
Yeah, let's have a picture here of a guy standing there in the snow, and the lower third statement on the bottom of the screen is "What global warming?" ? Right, and he's standing in the snow.
Oh, look, it's snowing today. There must be no
There's no such thing as
climate change.
I
ate today. There's no such thing as hunger in this world. Are you freaking kidding me?
Here's just to give a specific example. September 2014, Britt Hume says that President Obama was sending a much larger force to deal with Ebola in West African countries than with ISIS. Completely not true. What? Just total fabrication, right? The other thing that occurs here in terms of a propaganda technique is confusion. Purposefully confusing people. Now, it's different from misinforming. Instead of presenting outright lies as facts, confusion is implemented by presenting deliberately vague generalities so the audience can fill in the blank with the message they've already received about people who have already been presented as others or as enemies, right? You present a vague generality and you make the person listening fill in the blanks, and you're not lying. You're just presenting this misleading information by confusing people.
Right.
And it's talking around an idea with willful ambiguousness for the purpose of obscuring facts. An example that Heather cites here is the way that Fox News and its viewers bumbled around in bewilderment after the 2012 election. In the build-up to the election, the nonpartisan, respected polling organizations were using math to forecast a win for Obama.
Wow,
but
math.
Fox News says that's scientific gobbledygook, right?
What?
And, quote, liberal media noise. This is how they describe the math that these polling places are using. And so viewers are not being told that the numbers are outright lies. They're not being told anything about the numbers. They're just being told that these numbers are confusing and they don't make a lot of sense and it's liberal media noise. And the viewer
it doesn't matter.
The viewer is left to fill in the blank that the election is not clearly Obama's. That's the blank they have to fill in because they're confused by the information that's being given to them.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Another example of how you create an alternate reality, right, is you rewrite history. And that's simply lying about things that have already happened.
Yeah.
Right? It's a type of misinformation in which the current opinions are justified by presenting an inaccurate view of the past. And this is just amazing how this gets done, right? Like, for example, they'll paint President Obama as soft on terrorism. An example, Eric Bolling, the co-host of the Fox News program The Five, said, and this is how they got away with this.
This is incredible.
Eric Bolling says on The Five, there were no terrorist attacks under President Bush. He says, quote, America was certainly safe between 2000 and 2008. I don't remember any terrorist attacks on American soil during that period of time. Now, I want you to think about that for a second.
No, I don't want to. My head's going to hurt.
Between the years 2000 and 2008, this man could not remember 9/11.
One of the biggest terror incidents.
The largest terrorist incident in history.
In history, on our American soil.
That's right.
The biggest thing to happen since fucking D-Day. Are you kidding me?
Exactly. And this is Fox News rewriting history, right? In order to justify a current opinion that was being stated, right? Then when somebody calls them out on it, the Fox News' response is, "Oh, you're just being petty."
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but I just want to point out here, no one on the panel that this Eric Bolling son of a bitch was sitting on when he said this nonsense, no one went, 9/11? No one. And here's the reason why no one said it. I don't think it's because no one remembered. I think it's because they all they can't argue with anybody else.
Not when they're forwarding
Not
their
when
agenda.
They're on the show.
There's an agenda to forward.
They want to keep getting a paycheck. They're not going to argue with him on the show. And then for Fox News to call someone else for bringing out 9/11 as petty.
Right. I know. It's amazing. You can't believe it.
Hello, Kettle. My name is Black. I don't even know how to make this. I'm turning into George freaking Bush. I can't make a sentence happen here that's coherent because this is utter nonsense. This is like the biggest red flag about Fox News that I have ever seen. Mm-hmm. For them to say that someone pointing out, hey, you forgot about 9/11 is petty?
Yeah.
Are you shitting me?
Yeah. They have an agenda, and when you look at that agenda and what it is, things like what you just said make sense, right? Because they don't make sense. They're not rational. They're not logical. And if you look at what Fox News is doing and you think that they're trying to be logical or rational, you're going to go crazy. You're gonna have the reaction you just had. You're going to go absolutely bonkers. But if you look at what their agenda... I have to go home
and go to bed. I can't... My head can't work anymore.
Well,
I don't know if I can drive home.
Okay.
I might have to sleep on your damn couch. I can't... My head is going to explode. And where they're talking about this, he basically, when he was called out by everybody, he said that he misspoke and that the radical liberal left was being petty for expressing outrage over his lie. If anyone from any opposite corner said this same statement, Fox News would be calling him unpatriotic.
That's
in
right.
Heartbeat.
Exactly. Liberal elite, un-American, all the words would come out. And
you could never listen to this person ever again.
That's right.
Because they're completely, like you said, un-American, ungodly.
That's right. You got it.
What good red-blooded American doesn't remember 9/11? Eric fucking Bolling, that's who.
That's right.
Your guy. Your guy.
That's right. So this cycle of these 4 steps are what is repeated over and over again on Fox News. And and I'm not laughing because this is funny. It's actually, Ruth is actually having a 100% appropriate response to what we're talking about. People should be outraged about this. It shouldn't make sense.
Straight.
Exactly. It should drive you nuts.
And you know what? This shouldn't surprise me. I took a critical thinking class with Dr. Barbara Forrest at Southeastern Louisiana. And she wonderfully had us watch in class. Like, this was 2 full days of my class with this woman. We watched the documentary from the early 2000s, Outfoxed. And all it really is, it's a documentary about how Rupert Murdoch hands down his little notes to tell all of his people in Fox what to say, when to say it, and how to get people to believe their nonsense. It's basically ex-Fox contributors and reporters coming on and saying, yeah, we knew what we were saying. We knew what we were saying was wrong. And we knew that we had to keep saying it to keep our jobs.
Precisely.
And it's an incredible documentary. I highly recommend it. I have no idea where you can find it. They didn't pay us to say this. Just freaking watch it.
Right.
It's eye-opening.
It's very eye-opening. And
this is even more eye-opening.
Okay. So these 4 steps go round and round and round at Fox News, and that's what you have there. And as I said at the beginning of this thing, Fox News is not the only media outlet doing this. You will find examples of this in any media, and if you're wondering how to critically watch media or how to be a critical thinker in regards to media, this is how you do it, is you pay attention to things like this that we've been talking about during the show. Now, one last point that Heather makes, which is important, and I'm going to talk about it here, is these effects that this Fox News creates are not just to their target audience. Anyone is susceptible to Fox News' message. Democratic members of Congress, for example, Heather says, became more sympathetic to Republican causes after being exposed to Fox News. It's like a disease. Their hostility toward Mexican immigration increased, for example, as did their belief in inaccuracies about climate change and the Iraq War. Fox News deliberately misinforms its viewers about things like climate change to score political capital, and most scientists now believe the Earth is on the brink of its 6th mass extinction. Fox News not only fosters a culture of terror and hate, it also purposefully contributes to this destruction of the planet. Now, this is also one reason why Donald Trump has received a base of people who are willing to believe his bullshit. And I'm just calling it out for what it is. Fox News prepped this. We didn't talk about this when we were talking about the culture of fear that various events have created in the United States. And we talked, I think, maybe a little bit about the media, but Fox News is at the front of the line at creating a culture of fear in the United States and creating this us versus them mentality. And they've prepped these people, these angry white men, to be Trump supporters. And it is through disinformation, misinformation, confusion, and these other propaganda techniques that we've been talking about that you create these mindsets, and that is how you create a cult of Fox News followers, and it is a destructive cult. And that's really my main point with this, and I think I've made my case using Heather's article here as the basis of the argument.
Yeah, you know, Chris, when you first sent this to me earlier in the week, and I kind of looked at it, and I'm like, God, it's a wall of text. And I was a little intimidated at first, but luckily I know how to use my head, and I read it, and we all saw my little bit of a meltdown. Well, we didn't see it. We all heard. Pretty sure people are hearing steam coming off of my head right now. But it's one of those things, and you know it. People like us, we see it. We see how these manipulating tactics are so blatantly obvious. And it kills us because friends, family members, coworkers, acquaintances, people that we talk to just watch it and they eat it up.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said it a few times during the podcast. My mother watches Fox News all day long. Like, I go to their house whenever I go home for a holiday or whatever, turn on the TV, there it is. My mother picks me up from the airport. She's listening to Glenn Beck or freaking Rush Limbaugh. And it gets into my head, and I just stop thinking. Because I can't listen to them because I'll get like this.
Right.
And I can't have a meltdown in front of my family. it's just not done. It's not ladylike to have a meltdown. It's tacky. No. So I can't go home and take my mother seriously when she spouts off information at me that's directly from Fox News, and it kills me. Because my mother's a very intelligent, independent, wonderful woman. I love her.
That's right. And I'm glad you just mentioned that, because it brings up a point I'd like to mention here. Mm-hmm. Just like Scientology and any other destructive cult out there, none of this is dependent on the IQ or intelligence factor of the Fox News viewers.
Right.
None of this is a statement of the stupidity of Fox News viewers or anybody who falls for this. These are techniques that are used and designed to be used on intelligent people to get them thinking particular ways. And IQ is not a factor.
Yeah.
It is awareness of the techniques.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting? My SO asks me all the time. My sisters and I grew up in the exact same household. One of my sisters and I grew up we ended up in the same grade. We're not twins. We just ended up in the same grade. Mm-hmm. Long story about that. Let's just blame Louisiana.
Damn Louisiana.
Damn it. But she's a year older than me, and we had the same upbringing. When we went to church the same way, we had the same friends. We went to the same schools. We had the same experiences. She is very much a devout Christian. Fine. She listens to Fox News. Fine. She has these beliefs that I just don't have. And here I am, staunch atheist, militant atheist, if you want to call it that. I'll wake up early and go to a rally. Woo, I'm a militant. And he asks me all the time, how did this happen? How do you have two people from the same background have two completely different concepts of reality in the world and two different viewpoints?
That's right.
And you know what? I have no idea how to answer that. My sister and I had the exact same experiences, and here we are. Mm-hmm. So it has
you mentioned that she watches Fox News.
Yeah. I grew up watching Fox News. It was on in the house growing up.
Oh, got it. Okay.
It was on in the house growing up. I just picked up a different book somewhere along the way, and here I am.
Right.
Not to say that my sister doesn't read books. She went to college. She has a nice job. She has a family, kids, all that.
Yeah, it just proves out the point that every single person is individual.
Exactly.
Their DNA is individual. Exactly. Their thoughts and processes are individual. And
I don't know how she perceived our life. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, differently.
How people, somewhere along the way, she heard one thing, I heard another thing.
Yeah.
And that may have just been our split. But you can't, just like you said, Chris, you can't sit here and say, oh, well, all Christians are stupid. All people who listen to Fox News are stupid. All Scientologists who are still in it, who still believe this crazy nonsense are stupid. No.
Has nothing to do with it.
It has nothing to do with that. It's just something that they listen to here clicks. Maybe one thing that they listened to a long time ago made sense. And from that one thing that made sense, they started to buy into the next thing. And they started to buy into the next thing, which is probably how you got out of Scientology.
That's
and
right.
how I became an atheist. We heard one thing that made sense.
You got it.
And it rolled from there.
That's right.
And that's pretty much the only thing that I can think of that's happening here.
It's a buildup.
Right.
It starts small,
it's like, well, if
and
they're
then
right
it goes
about this
and
thing,
goes
they have to be right about this thing.
You got it.
And that's what it is. And so they find that niche in there.
And it's kind of how our brains work.
Yeah.
And critical thinking and logic and skepticism and stuff, I don't know if we've said this before or made this point clear. It is not native to how we think. Mm-mm. Our brains are not wired to do this. We're overcoming our shortcomings when we use critical thinking and skepticism and reason.
Our brains are very much wired to have emotional responses, evolutionary thinking.
That's right.
Survival.
That's right.
And going back, just with the survival portion of this is with the fear mongering that they have in here. That's the survival instinct that kicks in.
That's right.
These are people who are against me, so I automatically have to protect myself from them. So when you build in this idea that these people are against you and they're different from you, even though we're all from the same freaking country, whatever. No, these people are different.
Yep.
They don't think the same way I do. They are a threat to me and my family. Fear mongering increases racism, and then you have all this crazy nonsense. And we have to really sit here and go, this is all so that Murdoch can have more fucking money.
Exactly.
And
that is why it is
destroying lives for money. This is freaking ridiculous.
That's right. And that's why I'm so passionate about calling
capitalism.
This out as a destructive cult.
Yeah.
Because it's individuals who do this. It is not some law of nature. It is not just a way of life or a fact of life and all that. That's not what's going on here. Individual people make decisions to act this way and to push these agendas forward.
Right.
And if we recognize that, we are actually taking steps to prevent them from being able to accomplish those agendas. The same way that I speak out against Scientology, it matters.
Right.
It matters that we see this. It matters that we talk about it. And by doing so, we do fight back against it. And that's why I don't just give up or roll over or go, well, this is just how it is.
Right.
I say, no, this is wrong. Let's talk about it and let's raise awareness on it. And eventually, if enough of us do that, we will change this condition.
Right.
So
don't be like me. Don't be afraid of your family. Just know your stuff when you go into it.
That's right. That's right. And on that happy note for the holidays.
Yeah. Yeah. So when this one goes out, it'll be the last one before
Christmas.
Before solstice.
That's right.
Or whatever.
Solstice.
Fine.
Yes.
Christmas, solstice, whatever.
Here it is, the war on Christmas, folks, right here. I'm looking at it.
I have a red hat on.
I am the defender of
I'm
faith.
Festive, god damn it. And you know what? Christians stole more than half of the fucking traditions. So don't start with me, war on freaking Christianity.
Of course they did.
Learn your own goddamn history.
Go drink out of your red Starbucks cup, you Christian Christmas hater.
You know what? I might. And tomorrow, I'm going to be at a Planned Parenthood rally Saturday morning. So when people are listening to this, I'll already be done with it, probably.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I'm going to be there really early.
That's right.
But when we come back, it'll be after the major holiday. I'm not going home. I'm staying here in my heathen world.
Yep, me too.
So
good times all around.
Yeah.
You guys out there have a great holiday.
Whatever you're celebrating, enjoy it.
That's right. Whatever you're doing, have a great week. Enjoy Star Wars, because I know all of you are going to go see it. And, thanks for...
Shut your trap. I hope everybody had a happy Hanukkah.
And thank you very much for coming around and listening to us. This was an extended show. I know it's a little longer than usual, but
it was incredibly fascinating. And when you start talking about it, you can't shut your trap.
Nope.
Can't do it.
Nope. Got to go all the way. Got to take it all the way. So
because then I have meltdowns and I have to talk myself out of them.
That's right. So thanks for coming around, folks. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys.